So in the gospel, we've got these followers of John who come to ask Jesus a question. And Jesus responds in good old Jesus way. Because you ever notice that throughout the Gospels, Jesus most often doesn't answer a question directly. He says a parable or a story or an illustration, and many, many times he will respond to a question with a question. Did you ever notice that? Matter of fact, throughout the Gospels, Jesus is asked 183 questions. But he only responds to 3 directly. So in the passage you just heard, they say, so are you the one? Are you the Messiah? Are you connected to God? And it's almost as if Jesus is being, sarcastic. Because he says, well, what do you think? Come on, look at all these great things that happen. What do you observe? So what I'd like to do is to kind of switch that around a bit. Let's say someone came to you and asked if you are a follower of Jesus, if you are connected to God. Well, you probably don't want to say, well, here's what I know, or here's my prayer time. But what you probably want to do, instead of saying, well, here's what I think about Jesus, is to say, what do you observe? Let your actions speak for themselves, just like it did for Jesus. But I got a creative way for you to think about it when you think about how you follow Jesus. Perhaps what you could say is, well, watch my driving. What do you observe? When you think of it, that most of us, that we think we're good drivers. You ever notice that? We think somebody else is a bad driver. But here's a test for you. If you're driving, and all of a sudden a police officer comes up behind you, do you change your driving style? Why don't you drive like that all the time? It's like the young man who was stopped by the highway patrol for speeding. The highway patrol comes up to him and says, so did you not see the speed limit sign? The young man says, yes, I saw the speed limit sign. I just didn't see you. Well, I have an idea for you all. This would be the perfect gift that you could give for Christmas. That many of you, not all of you, many can give. This is a gift that you could give all humanity. And that would be to transform your driving so that it reflects your faith or what you believe. Because we know that, driving can be stressful. Driving can be a burden. We can get nervous about it. And it's so funny because there can be some just nice, ordinary people when you talk to them. But you get them behind the wheel, oh my goodness, they start to become crazy and discourteous and impatient and even angry. It's like the story of the guy who said, I can't believe it the other day. I saw this girl texting while she's driving. I got so angry that I pulled up next to her, rolled down my window, and threw my beer at her. Well, in that second reading, the writer has a perfect remedy for us of how to improve our driving. You just heard it. He said, be patient and don't complain. How many times do we think, well, if they would just improve, or if they would just watch where they're going? Comedian George Carlin once said, have you ever noticed that anyone who is driving slower than you is an idiot, and anyone driving faster than you is a maniac? We all know what to do. Slow down, take more time. Now it's snowing out, so we all know that we're supposed to be more careful, allow more space between us and the car in front. We all know that, but that's just good driving. What I'm suggesting is that you let your driving reveal what you believe. example, think of your vehicle, your car, your truck, whatever you drive. Think of it as a chapel. That becomes your sacred space. Now, first of all, some of you might need to clean out your chapel once in a while, because with all that clutter in your chapel, it's hard to get your mind uncluttered. But when you get into your vehicle, try this. Just taking a deep breath. Perhaps recognizing the goodness, all the good things you have, the ability to drive, the ability to travel. But start thinking that all this goodness is not only meant to be for you, but that you can wish goodness on others. That becomes really your sacred space where you can say, I want to wish goodness on other folks. For example, I hear a lot of people where they say, the time when I want to swear is when I'm driving, more than any other time in my day. And perhaps the issue is not so much that other person, but it's you. And maybe start changing your attitude about when you drive. For example, that erratic driver that comes around or cuts in front of you or might say to you that you're number one by using another finger, that kind of person, okay? Well, instead of getting mad at them, why don't you pray for them? Why don't you say a prayer saying, oh, dear Lord, that person must be in such a hurry, must be really stressed. I hope goodness for her. I hope goodness for him. I have a friend who practices that, and actually when it does happen, she then puts on her southern drawl when she's praying in her car. She says, dear Lord, would you please help that poor soul? Obviously did not get enough hugging and loving when he's a little kid, and now he's coming out and is driving. So please make him safe. But it's a way of thinking differently. Or think of like when you're looking for a parking spot at like the shopping mall, and all of a sudden somebody pulls in and takes your spot. Well, what you can do instead is saying, well, good for you. You probably needed that spot. And I will find the spot that I need. As opposed to cursing them or thinking bad things. Because let me tell you, when you get in your car, if you expect badness to come out there, it's going to come back at you. But if you start thinking loving thoughts toward others, that loving thoughts is going to come back to you. For example, let's say you're coming in a car that's trying to merge. Well, let them merge in front of you. What can happen is all of a sudden that you feel better. You feel like, wow, I just made some day. And what often can happen if a person was allowed to come in, and maybe that driver then is going to allow somebody else. I mean, it kind of pay it forward. There's a lot of holiness that can happen when we drive. Now, I get it, because many of you have been involved in accidents or collisions or things. That was not your fault at all. And you're still angry about that. But when we look at our world, and so many of us, we're worried about, what's happening to politics, or what's happening to all people. They're fearing so much, or all these people arguing with each other. Well, what we celebrate in Advent is the fact of God's grace coming to us in a very simple way, in the form of a child. We celebrate all the goodness and joy, especially on this third weekend of Advent. And then what we're entitled or invited to do is to pass that on to others. To be grateful, to be thankful. So when you think of the mess in your life, and not just driving, but like at home or at school or among your family. And it's so easy to blame somebody else. You got to ask yourself, with God's grace working through us, are you part of the problem, or are you part of the solution? Ask others. Well, what do you observe?